everybody. Welcome to the Awakener podcast. It's great to be with you today. You need to go to theawakener.ca. It's paramount. Go to theawakener.ca. It's your best resource for understanding everything that is happening. What is happening? Well, the Western world and its imperialist forces, which trace back to the time of Constantine, is under threat by an evil force which seeks to destroy it. There's not one imperialistic force that seeks to control the planet. There's two. The other one is a communist conspiracy that seeks to enact total control over all nations on Earth. And how is it being done? Well, it's being done very slowly and in the dark where people can't recognize that it's happening. The events that are unfolding today, like I told you before, are unfolding because the USA simply hasn't had democracy for a very, very long time. It is my opinion, and the opinion of this podcast that I've done, that presidents have been blackmailed for a long period of time, which has led to the faked collapse of the Iron Curtain by the Soviets, with George Soros being in charge of this. And Obama was a Soviet plant put in under the guise of, the hour of empire collapse. And he was setting up a giant war with America's enemies where a power structure changing war would take place and a communist revolution would take place in America where the communists would rise up and seize control. This would lead to a complete changing of the world. And from that moment in time through to the world history for thousands of years, the whole world would be enveloped in darkness. What do I say this? Well, our entire viewpoints that we've had historically here in the Western world would change from that moment forward. This includes various nations changing, obviously, control. This is changing the definition of the Semitic people. And this was all going to be done with a violent changeover of power that the Western world had no idea what to expect. Now, I saw this, and this obviously relates to Charlie Kirk and his assassination and the truth about what these people want. And here it is, right here is a screenshot. I can't show you this, but I'm going to read it to you. It's a sign. It says, "The revolution will not be voted in. Join armed queers." Well, what do you know, ladies and gentlemen? The revolution will not be voted in. It'll be done under a guise of chaos. What these people want is not a debate, clearly. They want to seize control and take over, and they want to enact their policies via force for the entire world. How are they going to do that? Well, it's very complicated, but like I told you, the guise of what is happening is that the system would bring the U.S. complex to war on three fronts, and there would be an event that would unfold, what I would classify as an EMP attack, and this EMP attack would lead to the electrical grid in the United States of America being down for the count for a long period of time, probably about a year, maybe 2 years. During this period of time, the communists, who are well trained, they're very smart, and they're well organized, would have already had a bunch of people underground with guns, with food, everything prepared, and they would wait for the moment of chaos, which would probably take around 10 days. I've theorized about 10 days because that's about a period of time where people are running out of food, they're running out of water, things kind of descend into mass chaos. And at this point of mass chaos where people are starving, they're not well fed, they're confused, the communists come out with guns ablazing, seize control, and they put their socialist paradise into place. And then they start handing out bread and they start rewarding those who are good and join their side. And this is what these people were planning. Now, to understand all this, you have to really come to the perspective that Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea are providing a military agenda to back this. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, COVID, as you know, and coronavirus, the Western world and the governments put into place kind of a coronavirus protocol. Well, who provided the military optics for coronavirus? Who actually released the virus for the Western world and all this propaganda, Chinese, Iranian, and Russia propaganda, to completely clamp down on the Western world? Well, obviously, it was China, Russia, and crew that did this. And I've theorized to you that this EMP attack was supposed to come from North Korea. And I'm going to dive right now into kind of like this giant abyss, and it's going to get really dark here, but it's just the truth of what I think is happening, and really kind of will set the understanding to the events that are unfolding in the near future. Obviously, as you know, the war in North Korea has not ended. Well, if you look in world history and you go back to the Korean War, if you did any research on it, you would understand that North Korea and South Korea, actually, this war has not ended. There's been a kind of stalemate since this period of time. And as you know, the United States of America is backed on a military kind of agenda, and they have a military complex which has deep and dark kind of networks of control and operatives all over the world. And my theory to you, and obviously if you go to theawakener.ca, is that Kim and the family have been infiltrated and controlled for quite some time. This is not something that I enjoy sharing on this podcast, but I'm predicting stuff that is going to come in the future. And it's my belief structure is that Kim Jong-un and the family are kind of the mole when it comes to this giant war that the communists are planning. Now, obviously, North Korea and the war between, obviously, that nation and South Korea are very paramount in the understanding. South Korea, as you know, was invaded by North Korea, and it got pushed all the way down, all the way to the sea. In this war, the United States of America put a bunch of soldiers, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, in South Korea at the very end of that nation's existence and pushed North Korea all the way up to, obviously, I think it's the 30th, whatever it's called, 30th parallel, whatever it's called. And they continued to push the North Koreans all the way to the Chinese border. This is when America and China made a really amazing discovery. America realized that North Korea could never be taken, and the Chinese realized that North Korea could never be taken either. Why is that? Because the Chinese border is right there, and China could just put a huge amount of soldiers into North Korea and push America all the way down. It really would not matter how many soldiers the US brought in there. China could always overwhelm them via force from brute numbers, and North Korea could never be taken. Now, to understand this war in perspective and how it relates to the communist revolution is obviously a North Korean EMP would instigate this war on America. This is what's coming. This is why Klaus Schwab and all these crew have always talked about, oh, we're going to have a cyber attack and no electrical power and all this stuff, because they're already talking about their agenda, which is going to be done by force, obviously by the military of these Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. And what I've told you is that North Korea is being blackmailed to instigate this war with the United States of America because they have no choice. Kim either has to instigate this war for Putin and Xi, or if he doesn't, him and his family under duress and danger. This is why I've always theorized, and you need to go to my website to understand the whole scope of this. The United States of America has infiltrated North Korea. They've infiltrated the regime and the family because the war has never ended. Because there has been no declaration that this war has ended and there's not been any official sign-off, the U.S. military has involved a bunch of resources into obviously control of North Korea and infiltrating it, to the point that it is my belief that Kim Jong-un is the giant mole, and the family is a giant mole providing intel to the United States of America. This in turn, this intel lets the U.S. industrial complex know that U.S. uranium that was obviously transported through Canada and through the European Union and Ukraine and on to Kazakhstan, they gave the heads up to the DIA that this U.S. uranium arrived on their soil. And this started this whole investigation, and obviously other investigations that I talked about with the Bidens, and formulated that the true leak was actually Obama and what they were organizing. This is why we have Trump. And like I've told you, the United States of America has not had democracy in a very long time. I got a lot of flack on this podcast because I told you that Trump is not democracy either. A lot of people told me, well, that, you know, you can just go to hell and forget all this, and I'm not listening to the show anymore. Well, like, I'm just trying to be truthful with you, is that Obama was the coup d'etat in America by the communists. He was setting up this giant war, and Trump is the face of a covert military agenda, or the counter coup on Obama himself to stop this war from happening. And the events that are unfolding today are because of these two forces that are kind of enacting their tit-for-tat kind of war, and they're not telling the general public what is happening. So anyways, to understand all these points and what I've just talked about, go to theawakener.ca. Like I told you, this is a very advanced podcast. They were setting up the destruction of the USA. They were setting up the destruction of, obviously, Taiwan, South Korea, Europe, and obviously Israel. And we talked about how Iran and all these nations connect with all this dot, but you need to go to the website to fully understand it. That's all for now. Take care.